Okay, so let's get started. Thank you everybody for waiting. Lloyd, I will give a brief introduction in Vietnamese first, and then later on we can, take it away in English. That sound good for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Xin gửi lời chào tới tất cả mọi người. Thì lời đầu tiên mình xin thay mặt toàn bộ team admin của Hội Nghiện Việc xin gửi lời cảm ơn đến mọi người đã bỏ cái thời gian rất là quý báu ngày hôm nay để tham dự talk show mang tên là Câu chuyện Franchise. Mình tên là Amy và hiện nay thì mình đang hoạt động trong lĩnh vực di trú, và đồng hành với mình ngày hôm nay thì là anh Vincent. Thì một lát nữa thì anh Vincent sẽ giới thiệu về bản thân nhé. Thì để buổi talk show ngày hôm nay được diễn ra thuận lợi mọi người vui lòng mute cái tiếng ở trong cái phần Zoom của mình, và nếu mà mọi người có bất kỳ một cái câu hỏi nào thì có thể đánh cái câu hỏi trong cái phần chat box, hoặc là có thể chờ đến cuối chương trình để chúng ta có thể đặt cái câu hỏi trực tiếp cho cái người speaker ngày hôm nay. Và khác với cái buổi talk show trước đây thì buổi talk show lần này được diễn ra hoàn toàn bằng tiếng Anh. Cái lý do chúng mình quyết định lựa chọn cái câu chuyện franchise để mang tới mọi người là bởi vì trong những cái series trước chúng ta có thể nói về những cái vấn đề ví dụ như là gọi là an cư, đầu tư vào bất động sản, nhưng mà trong cái series lần này thì chúng mình muốn nói về cái vấn đề là an cư và lập nghiệp, là cái vế thứ hai, thì là một trong những cái hình thức kinh doanh rất là phổ biến ở trong thị trường Bắc Mỹ, đó chính là mô hình kinh doanh nhượng quyền franchise. Và ngày hôm nay thì chúng ta rất là hân hạnh khi được chào đón một trong những cái khách mời có rất nhiều kinh nghiệm và đến từ tập đoàn MTY, đó là ông Lloyd. Và Amy xin gửi cái lời chào đến ông Lloyd và tất cả mọi người, và bây giờ chúng ta sẽ cùng bắt đầu chương trình nhé. Hi Vincent, you can take it away.
Ok, xin chào tất cả mọi người. Mình là Vincent, hiện đang là một cái business broker tại Toronto. Thì mình có đang giúp đỡ khách hàng tìm hiểu và mua bán tất cả cái loại hình doanh nghiệp. Đó, thì hôm nay khi mà được mời khách mời ông Lloyd, mình rất là hân hạnh được tiếp đón anh Lloyd để hôm nay có khách mời để chia sẻ với mình khá là nhiều thông tin về franchising. Ok, thì để bắt đầu thì mình sẽ bắt đầu nói bằng tiếng Anh nhé. Hi everybody, welcome to the talk show today for Hội Nghiện Việc, show number 6. So we have our great guest, Mr. Lloyd Mckenzie from the MTY Group. Lloyd, can you introduce a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the invitation, Vincent and Amy. It was a pleasure meeting you at the recent franchise show in Toronto. And I feel quite honored. I'm quite impressed by the group that you have and the membership you have, your Facebook page and everything like that. So it's very, very impressive what you're doing to help your community. And I'm very, very impressed and grateful for the invitation. So yes, my name is Lloyd Mckenzie. I've been in the food industry since I was 16 years old in Canada. Just to give you a little bit brief history of myself, I'm like many other people in Canada. Our first job was at McDonald's. So when I was just 16 years old, I had to get my hair cut because it was really long. And I started at McDonald's at 16, and my first job was cleaning dining room tables, picking up garbage outside and changing the garbage. So when I say I started at the ground up, I literally started at the ground picking up garbage and worked my way up. So at McDonald's, when I was 21 years old, I was the store manager. I was the youngest store manager at the time in Ontario for McDonald's, and I worked there for 10 years. And then I ventured out on my own and I became a franchisee. So I became a franchisee of a full service restaurant and bar nightclub called Ricky Joe's back in the days of the Roadhouse type atmosphere. So kind of a rough and tumble place at night and great food in the day. And I did that for 10 years. It was great. When I went into that business, I was single, which was a lot of fun being in that business. But after 10 years, I was married, had 2 little girls, and I didn't renew my franchise at 10 years and thought I'd do something else. So then I got back into quick service. I was a district manager for years for Wendy's restaurant, for the largest franchisee in Canada. Then I switched to Prime Restaurants of Canada, where I was a district manager for Irish pubs for a lot of years. And I also audited a lot of restaurants, from Irish pubs to the beer market downtown Toronto, to Casey's restaurants, and to Eastside Mario's. And then I switched over to MTY Group about 10 years ago, and I was the director of operations for Mucho Burrito. Many of you know that brand. It's across Canada, one of MTY brands. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, I became the brand leader, and I'm the brand leader for 7 different Asian concepts, 2 Chinese brands, 3 Japanese brands, and 2 Korean brands. All of them are located in food courts, either in malls across Canada, or some of them are in office towers. I also have locations, 30 locations in the United States, in airports, universities, and also one in South Korea, 1 in Japan, and 2 in Germany. They're in Air Army bases, USA Army bases. So I've literally been in the business since I was 16 years old. I've worked my way up, and I think that, you know, as far as talking about franchising, I kind of I was a franchisee myself for 10 years. So I certainly know that side of the business. And now I work with all my stores. I have 145 stores I'm responsible for. They're all franchised. So franchisees from all walks. So that's kind of my history. I've enjoyed this business. It's one of the few businesses that you can really start at the ground level and work your way up. Right? I just have my high school education, and to be running the brands like this, I'm very fortunate, but there's not a lot of businesses that you get your foot in the door. However, we're talking about franchising tonight. So that's the history of me, Vincent.
That's amazing experience that you have. Like, not a lot of people can say that they have had, their entire life dedicated to the food and service restaurant business, right? Since 16. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about franchising. So a lot of our attendees tonight, right, they're familiar with the regular business concept of, like, open up our own, business, maybe a convenience store, maybe a small shop selling this and that back home in Vietnam, right? But here in Canada, the franchising model is something very new to a lot of people. So can you help us define a little bit what is franchising for these attendees?
Yeah, I certainly will. But just before I answer that question, Vincent, I'm just going to tell you a little history of MTY. So MTY, just so you know, was started by a gentleman named Stanley Ma in 1979. Stanley Ma was a Chinese immigrant who came to Canada with hardly any money in his pockets, and he opened 1 restaurant in Montreal. And a few years later, he had 2 restaurants. And a few years later, he developed a fast food concept called Tiki Ming. Tiki Ming's all across Quebec. And then Tiki Ming grew, and then he started diversifying and buying brands. So MTY has really been built on acquisition of other brands, existing brands, as well as growth within. So right now, the MTY group now has over 70 brands under its portfolio. 40 of them are in Canada. There's 7,000 locations around the world under the MTY banners. Wow. And we've been around for 40 years. We do almost $4 billion in sales annually now. And we are a publicly traded company. We're listed on the TSX, MTY, and we're a very high valued company. When COVID first hit, our stock went down to $14. It was the lowest it went. And right now it's over $60. And the reason that MTY has survived so well during the pandemic is the diversification. We have full service restaurant brands. Mm-hmm. We have fast casual brands. We have quick service brands. We're in non-traditional places like airports, schools and universities. We're in malls,
army bases,
we're street fronts, army bases. So the diversification. So I guess the message is that sometimes you can start small and grow very big, and Stanley Ma is a great example of that. He just had an idea, but he kept growing. So franchising basically, and franchising really started, believe it or not, in North America by, I believe, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And of course, they changed their name to KFC, so not to remind you that it's deep fried. So that's why they call it KFC. But Colonel Sanders was the first one to start franchising. And he realized that he could, you know, his chicken was so popular that he couldn't run all these stores by himself. So he'd get partners to run them, and he started the franchising model. Then McDonald's jumped in on it. McDonald's was a very, very successful burger joint in California, and the traveling salesman was just in awe of how busy they were. So he bought the rights to McDonald's. He started the same thing. And in North America, you really right now, franchises is in food service it's pretty much all franchising. I think the stats are that if you start your own restaurant now, within 2 years, 60 to 65% of you will fail and close. So why franchising is so popular is it's a system, it's a model, it's procedures that you don't have to worry about. So, the bottom line on a franchise is there's a model that you buy into and pay for. You just have to worry about delivering it. You don't have to worry about menu development, how you cook things, what equipment you need, new menu items, purchasing like through distributors. You just have to run your business, right? So that's why franchising, I think, is so popular, because people with no experience in food can be very successful franchisees due to the fact they just have to follow the book. The other thing about franchising that's so popular, Vincent and Amy and everybody, is that it offers support. So if you open your own restaurant, you're kind of on your own, but in franchising, you have district managers, you have marketing people, and everybody else is there to help you make successful, because really MTY was built on three pillars: excellence, dedication, and innovation. And they really believe in working hand in hand with the franchisees. In other words, the better the franchisee does, the better the franchisor does. So we were partners, we're a vested interest. The more sales you do, the more royalties I'm going to get. A franchise helps you with deciding. A big company like MTY will help you decide what's the right brand for you. I always say, if you love driving a Mercedes, you're not going to make a good Ford salesperson, right? If you really detest pizza, don't go in the pizza business, because you've got to really believe in what you're doing. So we help with the brand selection, because we have a wide variety of food concepts to buy into. We help with the location. So when it comes to franchising, the good thing is you're not told this is your location. You're told this is a great location, we think. Here's all the demographics. Here's all the studies that we've got. You decide if you want it or not. So it's your final decision whether you want a location or not. And you can also bring a location to us, and we'll do this computer study on it. So it's a decision that we make together. So when it comes to locations, I always say you have to believe it down in your gut that that's really a great location. You check it out at lunch, you check it out at dinner, you check it on weekend. Is it visible? Is it accessible? Is there good traffic flow? We help with the design of your restaurant. We have the expertise to design and everything. We know all the electrical needs, the plumbing needs, how much cubic feet per minute you need in your exhaust hood, marketing support. So, social media. And I don't have to tell you guys are young, you're experts on social media. I just like to brag. I am on Instagram, and I'm even on TikTok.
I will be sharing your handle if you would like.
Actually, everybody's on TikTok now. I feel like I'm kind of behind young people.
Even the old guys are on TikTok, right? So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
actually, you answered my second question for you. I was about to ask, what is franchising a good model for young entrepreneur versus they're gonna start on their own. But actually, before you answer the second question, I just want to share a story. So when we post the talk show poster on Facebook group, the first comment we received was like, hey, I should have invested the stock in MTY, because last year their stock went up by 80%, which is unbelievable. Like, I had doubt for this guy, but then they changed the game. So a little story behind.
Yeah, I kind of wish the same thing, Amy.
Everybody investing in stock.
Yeah.
So you talk a little bit about that process from, why is franchise is a better model to invest in versus starting up on your own. And you touch upon a little bit on how MTY can help pick a brand. So what does that process look like? How do MTY, can you help take us through if, myself and Amy decide we have some money to open our own franchise? How does MTY help us choose a brand that fits us?
Yeah, I think there's two things you have to look at. One, as I mentioned before, is it's a food that you should be proud to serve, right? Like it should be something that you really think, okay, I've checked out this brand. You can go to mty.ca, our website, and see all the brands and read all about them.
Like 70
all the
plus
information
brand, right?
there.
Yeah.
But you really have to go feel them, touch them, talk to the franchisees. If you're interested, when it comes time to getting a franchise, we give you a list of all the franchisees of the brand, their contact information. You're welcome to call them and ask them about it. So, we always say you've got to do your due diligence. So you want to combine, like if you really, really love, let's say, hamburgers made of pork meat only or something like that, but it's not selling in Canada, maybe you don't choose that. So it's kind of a mixture between what you love, what you feel you could be passionate about, and what's successful, right?
Right.
So
I'm a great hamburger lover. Let's pick hamburger as a model. Maybe Korean food, because that will be falling under your umbrella of the Korean brands, right? Like Korea?
Yeah, Korean. We have two. Yeah. We have a kimchi Korean delight and Koryo Korean barbecue. Yeah.
Right. Korean barbecue is a great concept at the moment. Yeah.
Lloyd, is there any specific reason why you are managing, Asian brand versus, North American brand? Is there a specific reason why behind it?
I guess I was the next guy ready for promotion.
Okay.
I guess. I think that it's a really good question. And I just think that most of my team is actually Chinese or Asian. And I certainly need people on my team that can speak in Mandarin or Cantonese for sure. Because a lot of our franchisees, I would say 95% of our franchisees are of Asian descent, and English might be their second or third language. Even though you have to conduct business in English in Canada, you do. It's I think for the connection, it's important that we have a diverse team, which we do. The diverse team. I kind of broke the mold. I'm the first. Manchu Walk's been around for 42 years. I'm the first non-Asian leader of Manchu Walk. So I'm going to certainly hang on to those good people of mine that can really relate and speak the languages, because it is important. And I realize I'm the first one speaking English to your group. So,
do you have anyone speak Vietnamese?
I don't know. I was going to invite one of my staff team members to come on. She speaks about 4 languages, and I was, but she unfortunately had plans. She had tickets to some event tonight, so she wasn't available. But I was trying to get some backup.
No worries about that. Our group is actually, they. Even though we focus on Vietnamese people, but then we have like newcomers, we have international students, we have people who born here and grew up here as well. So we're all good.
Very diverse. Yeah.
Yeah, very diverse. Yeah. So the next question for you is, if you can advise us, what is the best time to open a franchise in a year?
That again is a really good question. My best advice is you open it as soon as you can. If you're getting into a brand, get open. If it's a mall brand in food courts, obviously the busiest time of year is November and December, and then also late August, early September, because it's back to school shopping. Whereas if you have a patio and you're full service, you want the summertime. So I think the time you open isn't as important as how effectively you open. There's a couple of sayings I'll quote. One is, you've only got that one chance to make a great first impression. They say that great impressions last forever, and it's more important how you operate. So I know we'll probably get to those questions later, but how you to be a successful franchisee, I don't want to jump ahead on any questions. But I think as far as opening, you just want to get opened. Like if it's a slow time of year, then you don't hire as many staff. and you watch your costs more. It's a busy time. It's challenging. When I opened my concept, I tried to do a quiet opening. I was lined up from 11:30 in the morning till 1 in the morning, and I almost killed my whole staff the first day because I had no idea we were going to be that busy. It was crazy, and it taught me that I didn't do enough pre-training. I almost pulled my hair out, but we survived. So I learned. I can tell you how not to do it. That's for sure.
Which month did you open your first store?
I opened Ricky Joe's in October. So it was kind of the busy season for bars, getting into Christmas and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, Thanksgiving for sure. So let's come back to the process of opening a franchise for a little bit. So we touched upon a little bit on what to pick in a brand, right? And then, so after we decided on a brand, what happened next? You touched upon a little bit on the location, finding a great location to be exact. What happened after that?
Yeah. Okay. So what happens is it's a long process. So it's a long process. It's typically from the time you own a brand till you open your store. It can be anywhere from as early as 6 or 7 months to a year and a half, depending on the location. So the steps are, and I'll try and get them in order. One is filling out an application with us that formalizes it, right? So you fill out an application. It's on our line. Our development team would help you with that. You fill out an application, and in that you have to give some financial disclosure, right? Because we want to make sure people are financially stable. We don't want people to get in over their heads. It's important. We don't check just to make sure, wow, they got lots of money, we want them as franchisees. No, our interest is to make sure you're not going to be set up for failure. So you fill out an application, that starts the process.
Is there a minimum required amount to join any of the MTY groups?
Yeah, and I mean, most of these things I'm answering, even if it's not MTY, it's about the same. Liquid cash, you probably need about $150,000 to start. So that's really what you need to start. And it's probably a good time. The rest of it, you would get a small business loan. That's a government-sponsored loan through your local bank. And it it guarantees your 75% of your loan. So in the event that you opened and you went broke and you closed up your shop, the government would pay 75% of that back to the bank, and you'd be responsible for 25%. The reason the government does that in Canada is to encourage young people like you all to get into business, because small business is the backbone of the economy in Canada. And small business employs a lot of people. It's good for the economy. You pay taxes. So it's from the government to help people get into business.
Right.
And after that, so then there would be, financial, make sure you're okay financially. The next thing would be what's called an operations interview. That's where someone like myself or another brand leader or director of operations would sit down with you and give you a formal interview to make sure you're a good fit for the business. And I'm going to tell you, we look for two things in franchisees. And guess what? It's not experience. It's not your knowledge of the food industry. It's two things: great attitudes and great personalities. That is the most important thing, because we can teach you the rest. We can teach you how to cook. We can teach you how to calculate food costs. We can teach you all that stuff, but I can't teach you to have a great attitude or have a great personality, because nowadays people are looking for a lot more than just good food. Food quality is a must. You've got to give an experience. People are looking for experience. They want that person that's super outgoing, remembered their name, remembered their order, bought them lunch once in a while or something like that. So that's what we look for. So the next step, as I said, would be the approval process, that you're approved. And then it would be site selection, right? Then agree on a site. Can take a long time, could take a short time. And after that, then there is the disclosure. So the disclosure is the law in Ontario. I'm not sure most provinces in Canada have what's called a disclosure law. That's where by law, we have to provide you with all the information, not just on the brand you're buying into, but on MTY. It's a great big document that tells you all the history of MTY, all the officers, all the if we're being sued by anybody, who's suing us for what, any stores that have closed in the last, that have closed, that, any stores that open, the list of all the franchisees. It's a copy of the lease. What are you signing on for? And then you have what's called the cooling off period. So you have 2 weeks to review it with a lawyer and make sure you're comfortable with everything. And the reason the government does this is to make sure you don't get tricked into anything in business with franchising. So they want to make sure we've given you all the information you need to know. You can ask questions at the end of the 2-week period, but at that 2-week period, you have that to yourself. And once you've signed off on that, you're comfortable, we've answered your questions, then we would prepare a franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement gets prepared, and that's basically the disclosure documents formalized with signatures. It's basically the same thing. And it tells you, the franchise agreement tells you all your rights and all your responsibilities as a franchisee, all the costs, all the fees. So you're fully aware of what's going on. Just about every brand, whether it's MTY or not, the franchise fee is $25,000 or $30,000, pretty standard across the board for quick service or fast casual. And for that covers all the legal fees for doing these documents and pays the training store to train you as well. So once you train the FA, then we schedule your training. Training's not done in the store you're going to be buying. It'll be in a different store, training store, where one of the head office teams and a franchisee will help you train. We also have MTY has something called MTYU, or MTY University in Richmond Hill. And you can do it online now because of COVID. And it's a 1-week course on everything from calculating labor, food cost, all the government standards and workplace standards, motivating, coaching your team, how to train. It's a really great course. And then after that, we get your store, we set it up with you, and we spend a week and a half with you every day helping you. And then we're back at least once a month for a full day to help you or help you anytime. And we're always there 24/7 if you have an issue, so that's kind of the process, kind of quickly. So I'm sorry if I went on too long on that one, but it's a long process.
So let me summarize it a little bit for the attendees here. So
Sure.
We start with an application, and then it processed to an interview with somebody like yourself on the team, etc., depending on the brand.
Right.
And you look for 2 main things. That's attitude and personality.
Right.
And after that, if the person is selected, they can process to a site selection or finding location with, together with MTY.
That's
and
right.
MTY can support that as well, trying to, pinpoint location and that kind of thing.
That's right. We use a national real estate company that's always looking for real estate for us. Exactly.
Perfect. And then next up will be a disclosure document that MTY provides to all of these potential franchisee.
Right.
And
by the time you get your disclosure document, you've signed up and you're ready to go.
Okay.
So then you get disclosure, yeah.
Right. And they have a 2-week period for lawyer review, everything off document, off the clauses within that.
Right.
So quick question, then this might be a little tough to answer. So what should we look out for in the disclosure document, even if it's not with, MTY or any other, franchise group? What are the main things that a franchisee should look out for?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer. You're right. It's a tough one to answer because it's such I'm going to be honest with you in the disclosure document. There's a lot that's the franchisee's responsibility, and there's not so much of the franchisors. So MTY. So it's really about the fees, how much it's going to be for a POS and everything. So, and then, like things like that you have to, I think what you really want to look for if you're looking at disclosure documents, but I would do it before you even got a disclosure document. Do your due diligence, visit other stores, talk to the franchisees, tell them what ask them what their experience is with MTY. Are they successful? They're probably not going to tell you if they make exactly what they make in profits, but they'll probably tell you it's been a good investment or it's not.
Right.
And that's going to be a mixed bag because there's happy franchisees, not so happy franchisees. There's franchisees that are doing amazing sales, and there are others that are struggling.
Right.
Or a big company. So I think the main thing is to have that comfort level going in that I've done my due diligence. I've talked to people. I've checked out the locations. I believe in the food. I believe in MTY. I think that's the most important thing, the due diligence, you know.
For sure.
I will tell you, a lot of people get into franchises and they don't even check out. I've interviewed people when I was with Mucho Burrito. They've never been into Mucho Burrito, but they're willing to spend $500,000 to build one.
Wow.
So, and it always shocks me. So that's how come I really, really stress the fact that get out there, visit a bunch of stores and try the food and everything, talk to the franchisees. So
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And thank you for those tips.
Lloyd, I actually curious about the investment. You mentioned earlier that we have to prepay 150K as liquid. So can you give us a quick breakdown? You know, what is 150K will be used for?
yeah, so it's when you get your bank loan. The bank loan gives you loans for everything that is an asset that they can repossess, call it. So your franchise fee would have to come out of the 150 because you can't get a bank loan for a franchise fee because they can't bring that back. So the bank loan will cover all the equipment, you know, the construction, all that. So that's what you need it. Typically to build a franchise, all-in prices of most franchises, and this isn't just MTY, would be anywhere from about, on a real cheaper one that doesn't have a lot of equipment, you know, maybe $325 to $350, $350,000, and then you know, for a full-blown one with a good kitchen and everything, probably about $550,000. Unfortunately, right now with COVID, just like everything is scarce, supply chain is the real issue. So getting equipment's more expensive. Building supplies are more expensive. They're starting to level off a little bit right now. So if you're asking me what time of year to open a franchise, I'd say not during COVID. You know, I think we see light at the end of the tunnel, but you know, a lot of the costs will come down. Beef went up 36%, but it's starting to come down. So the 150 is for soft costs, Amy, and the bank loan is for the hard costs.
I see.
And you want to have some pocket money too. You know, that's liquid that you have. It's always good to have some, if you have RSPs or equity in your home, if you have to borrow from it, you can. You'd like to have 150 set aside and you can use it, but having some equity that you could draw from if you had to. Because sometimes, you know, the first year you might not be profitable, you know, and you have to invest in your business. So. And then the bank loans typically are, the franchise is usually a 10-year term, and most bank loans are 6 years. So really what you want to do is get your loan paid off as quickly as possible. If you can pay it off quicker, that's when you become very profitable because you're not paying that bank loan every month. So.
Okay, I see. So does MTY collaborate with any specific bank in Canada that can help people with loan?
Yeah, we have a pretty good relationship with the Bank of Nova Scotia. MTY is very highly regarded. In most cases, we go on the head lease. So that gives the bank a lot of security. We're a big company that really helps you get into good locations because MTY will typically be on the head lease and you'd be a subtenant. So most banks like dealing with MTY because we've, as I said, we've got 7,000 locations. So we've done a lot of work with banks, and we have people on the team that coordinate with the bank and help you. So
awesome. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you, Lloyd. Yeah.
You touch upon a little bit about that situation with COVID, Lloyd, and I think again, I seem like a bad guy here, just throwing fastballs.
You take the bad. Amy gets the good questions.
I know, right? But you know, what is the current state of franchising in Canada in the past 2 years? Like, what have you observed? And you know, do you foresee any big changes coming as you know people are coming back to work, and then they're becoming fully vaccinated and things are opening up? Any changes for the next 2 years?
Yeah, there's been big changes in the restaurant industry in the whole over the last 2 years because of COVID. Some of these changes started before COVID. One is the popularity of delivery. So delivery services, you talk about DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Skip the Dishes. They are really about 25% of your sales now. It's unbelievable how busy they are. So that's generated, so that is the sales we lost from people being able to eat in our restaurants. We were able to pick it up by doing free delivery or buy a combo and get the drink free or $5 off, you know, so delivery made a big change. The next thing is a lot of restaurants made their menus simpler. Like if you go to A&W, for example, they've got one chicken sandwich and burgers. That's it, and fries and onion rings. That's all they have now. McDonald's, they used to have everything on their menu. They've made it easier, faster for the staff. So a lot of the items that either are high cost items for the franchisee or don't sell very well, people have downsized their menus to make it easier. That's another change. I guess the other change, some restaurants that had storefronts did curbside pickup. Other restaurants, we did a lot of this, family packs. So we know people wanted food, they couldn't come to the restaurants. So Manchukuo did a big special family dinner. So it was 4 sides, you know, 8 different proteins and 4 egg rolls for a certain price. So we bundled it together to make it easy for families. So I think the restaurant industry did a good job of adapting. People still, you know, I just saw a survey this afternoon, you know, there's still people that are uncomfortable going into mall food courts or going into restaurants to eat. So the patios did really well in the summer. But I think that good brands and good franchisors and good restaurant operators adapt. You know, prices had to go up because food costs went up. So, you know, the prices on the average in Canada have gone up 4 to 5% in the last 6 months. So you probably know, even going to McDonald's to get a combo and it's $16, you go, whoop, how did that happen? $16.
It was $10 before, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, so there's been big changes. You know, when we build new restaurants, we look for maybe instead of using the most expensive lumber in the world, we use a cheaper lumber and stain it to look expensive. You know, we look at building a little bit smaller with more takeout, more delivery. You don't need as many seats. So instead of maybe 2,000 square feet, you can get away with 1,200 square feet and have a lot less rent and taxes. So I think that's the adaptation that people have made. A lot of brands did super well during COVID and continue. Brands that they say that are, you know, the comfort foods. So burgers, Vincent, the category did really well. Pizza, extremely well. People thought pizza would be safe. It comes out of the oven into the box. Nobody's touching it. Remember, we thought we were all going to get COVID if we touched anything. Remember, we brought our groceries in and we were sanitizing them and everything like that. So pizza and sushi was another one that did really, really well through COVID. The ones that hurt, you know, the malls hurt more than others, and office towers. So my brands hurt a lot more, whereas our street front locations, they're back to normal sales now and they didn't go down as much. So
for sure. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I kind of observe myself as well, right? As less and less people go into the office, the location around of the downtown, you know, surrounding the offices tower before, they're really hurting. And some of them are closing down. But at the same time, I see like a huge growth in a lot of these new concepts where they just open like a small location and it's takeout only, very limited seating, only like a couple of seats. But for sure, yeah, lots of changes heading to, you know, the next 2 years.
Well, the other thing is, you've probably heard of ghost kitchens. Ghost kitchens represent about 5% of the food service sales in Canada already. And that's where you can go into a really cheap location and you don't need a storefront. You don't need traffic in front of you or accessibility. You go into an industrial area and you just pump out delivery food from it, you know, and you might have, you know, if you're a sushi concept, you might bring in pizza too, so you can be multi, you know, and
right.
So as I said, the restaurant industry will evolve and will continue to do well. People, though, during COVID still wanted to get food and eat out. You know, we don't want to make our meals at home 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So
that's my family.
Yeah.
Okay, can you share what are some of the common mistake that a franchisor make during, running their store? I know that franchising is a good model for investment, but at the same time, we heard people who may not succeed in, opening a franchise. So what would they be?
Okay, so I've got a really good quote, and it's from Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks. Everyone knows Howard Schultz. He's got many, many books out. We thought he was going to run for president there last couple of years ago, but he didn't. And he says, if you want your customers to have a great experience, you have to ensure your staff have a great experience. So I think, it's not the biggest mistake I think a franchisee can make is not realizing that their staff are number one, not the guests. And I know it kind of sounds not like the right thing. Lloyd, what are you talking about? But if you treat your staff awesome, they will treat your customers awesome. And too many franchisees are hard on their staff. They don't give them positive feedback. They're picking at them all the time. And guess what? It's hard to find staff to work in restaurants right now. And if you don't treat them well, they just go across the road and make more money anyway. So they're free agents, right? They're free agents. They can go anywhere. So I think the first mistake is not realizing how important good staff are. Another mistake with staff is as well, not looking for the two things I said you should look for, looking for personality and attitude, because they look for experience. Oh, you've made sushi before, I'll hire you. And they overlook the fact that the person maybe isn't very presentable, they're grumpy. So I think not valuing your staff and taking care of them is really important. The second thing is cutting corners. So franchisees like to cut corners to make more money. So in other words, if you're supposed to have 3 ounces of ketchup on that burger, they put on 1 because they save a little bit of money. But in the long run, it's very short-sighted, right? So they cut corners. They maybe bring in cleaning chemicals cheaper from home. They go buy Pepsi at Shoppers Drug Mart instead of getting it from the distributor, not realizing that it takes them out of their store. They've got to go get it, pick it up, but they think they're saving money. So I think that people trip on pennies to try and save dollars, but really the most important thing is give a fair portion to your customers. I'll give you an example. We have a franchisee in Kingston, and she opened a Mucho Burrito, and Mucho Burrito sells cookies, and they sell them for $1. They're fresh baked cookies. They're delicious chocolate chip cookies. She built her whole business by giving away free cookies. And it sounds crazy, but every guest that came in, she'd say, hi, is this the first time you've been here? And if they said yes, when they checked out, she'd just hand them a bag of the cookie and says, hey, it's your first time here. Here's the cookie, And it sounds like a silly little thing, but little things done repeatedly well over a long period of time can have a bigger impact than running an ad on Instagram or on TikTok, because you build that reputation. There's another pizza guy in Collingwood that got very, very famous. What he did, he ran a little takeout pizza place, and I think it was a Domino's. It wasn't one of our brands. Every time he saw someone come to his door, he'd run and open the door for them. And when they were leaving, he'd run and open the door for them. And he got in the local paper because he got famous for, he's crazy. He has to open the door. It cost him zero money to do it. This lady, it cost her 15 cents. That was her cost of the cookies. So I think that we have to forget about the pennies and look at the big picture. So the second thing they should avoid is cutting corners, right?
Yes.
And the second thing is, if you look at a P&L statement, you've got your sales on the top and the profit on the bottom. Really what you want to do is focus on building sales. A lot of people focus on controlling costs. So, I really need 5 people at lunch to give great service, but I can probably get away with 3 or 4. It won't be very good service, but I can save money. In the long run, they're focused in the middle of their P&L statement, saving money instead of focusing on building sales. I always say, if you need 5 people at lunchtime, put on 6, because it'll be faster service. You put people through quicker and you make more money. That will pay for itself and build your business. So I think those are the real key ones. Focus on building sales, take care of your staff, and don't cut corners. Follow the system. It's been proven to work, right? So.
Yes, for sure. I totally agree with all the points of view because from my own experience, is sometimes when I come into any store, it's the feeling of a person who give out the food that makes me want to come back to the store. Or like I usually think that people usually try to cut corners and then spend less money on stuff, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it turns out that nobody's happy, and then the sales turn down, and then the owner is going crazy again about the sales, and it's just the circle again and again. So thank you for sharing all of your tips and tricks for making a franchise successful. Yeah.
I can ask the group. I would ask the group this: can you remember at the top of your head the last time you had a bad experience in a food service of some type? Everyone can say instantly, "Yep," and then I can say, "Can you remember the last time you had a great experience?" You've got to think about it. So it's not hard being better than the competition, because nobody's very good at it. Nobody's very good at really being, especially in a food court, in a mall. I know they go, hi, what can I get for you today? Thank you. That's all you get. Does anyone ever go to their way and say, hey, how's it doing today? How's your day going? Or do they ever say, hey, listen, I've never seen you at my store today. Today I'm going to buy your lunch. Imagine if you just bought one customer a day a lunch during lunch for the year. It would cost you, your cost on that might be $6 or $8. Do you know how that would get around on social media? They said, holy cow, I went to Manchu Walk or something. I'd never been there before. They gave me a free lunch. So, as I said, little things done really well over a period of time is really how you'd be successful. So.
We actually have a really great question from the audience. It's from Kelly. She asked, how do you think the future of people increase the government increasing the wages would affect franchisee?
Yeah, I don't know. My wife is Kelly. I hope that's not her question, or she's going to be in trouble. I hear her walking around upstairs, so I don't know, Kelly. I hope you're not my wife, Kelly, but I will answer your question. Yeah, wages keep going up. The Ontario just went up 10 cents. That was a small raise, but basically Canada and USA is going to get to $15 an hour. Does it impact? Absolutely. And I don't want to scare you off, but right now a lot of franchisees and restaurant operators are paying a lot more than minimum just to try to attract staff. And I saw a presentation today. It's interesting. Most restaurant employees are between the ages of 16 and 24. In the last 20 years, the age population of people 16 to 24 is half of what it was 20 years ago. So it's not just because of COVID, people sitting at home collecting their CERB or their EI. It's just there's less people to work in the industry. So that's where feeding your staff is so important. You can get away with paying minimum wage if you treat them really well and appreciate them. I'll give you a sample of that. Not a very good operator might say at the end of the day, Amy, you're my employee. I'm just going to use you for a second. Amy, thanks. You did a good job today. Feels not bad. Can you imagine if I said this to Amy? Hey, Amy, today, we were short-staffed today. You hustled really hard. You all had a smile on your face and you were friendly to end me on it. It was such a pleasure working with you today. I'll see you tomorrow. And you see the difference that makes? Look at Amy smiling. It's because positive feedback has to be specific and realistic. You can't make it up. But that employee is going to feel really good and not look forward to coming to work tomorrow. And it didn't cost $17 an hour, $20 an hour. It just, using your appreciation. Find something specifically that people have done well. Too many people look for what people do wrong. You think about some of your parents, maybe. The same principles you learn about managing people in restaurants. You can apply in your marriage or with your children or anything else. Give recognition for something that's good. My wife's in the business too. She works for Starbucks. So she doesn't nag me every week to take the garbage out. When I take it out, she goes, oh my gosh, thank you for doing that garbage. I hate that job. Makes me feel good. I did her a favor. So it's just kind of reversing how we look at things. So.
And you've been doing that for many years, right?
Yeah, I got to take garbage out tonight, actually. That's why I thought of that.
Great.
Vincent can totally relate to the experience.
Yeah. So for Kelly, again, to summarize, unfortunately, when wages go up and costs go up, we have to raise prices. But we have found in surveys in Canada, people understand the pressures on restaurant industries, and we get very, very few complaints. We used to raise prices and we'd see our transaction count go down. The last 2 years, we haven't seen that at all. So people understand that it's, you know, just like skip the dishes. We know that the restaurants are charging more for the food. It's $5 to deliver it. I got one burrito, it's $25. They don't complain. I got to sit at my house and eat a good burrito, $25, you know.
So just wondering if a franchisee is not successful at operating a franchise, so is there any, so when they have to close down the business, I know that they sign a contract with MTY to run the business for a certain time. So would it be any penalty fee when they have to close down the business?
Yeah, so that's the last resort. And I've seen it very, very little. Well, if someone's not successful, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go in there and, you know, find out what's wrong. How can we fix it? Support them and make an action plan and try and make it right. You know, we might reduce the royalties as well. So to ease some of the, we might even help them pay some of the rent. Because if we're on the head lease and you close down after 2 years, guess what? We're responsible for 8 years of monthly payments. So we don't want you to close. So that's a very rare thing, and it's the last resort. You know, someone really, it's not the business for them, we will help them sell the restaurant. There's already, you know, the one thing, you know, buying a new franchise is, you know, if you want to get in the business, you know, you can buy a resale often for a lot cheaper and get in the business. But I also recommend when you get in, don't think about one franchise. You know, the whole goal should be, as soon as you're financially able, buy a second one, buy a third one. I've got people that own 3 and 4 locations and they're 30 years old. They started at 25. They ran it really well. They did all the things I talked about, build their business. And now they're like, the one guy was in the top 30 business guys under 30 in Canada. They did a 30 under 30. He's in British Columbia, has 4 locations at 30 years old of Mucho Burrito. So, you know, I think that, as I said, legally, yes, you know, you're on the sublease agreement. So, you know, but typically in a case like that, if you're going to close down, you're probably pretty much broke anyway. So if you have money to pay, you know, penalties, you'd be better off to keep your business running and try and sell it, you know, get new blood in it. But it's a very rare thing that it comes to that. You know, I've very, very rarely seen it. But I have seen people not successful and say, hey, Lloyd, you know, we tried this, it's not successful. Let's get your store sold and get some fresh people in here, you know. Because usually when they get to that stage, they don't have that energy to say, Amy, great job today, right? You know, they've lost that. They don't look forward to coming to work. They're not happy. And the business suffers because of that as well. So it's a downward spiral. So.
For sure, yeah.
All right. So just to wrap up again, thank you so much for today, Lloyd, for sharing about, you know, the entire franchising process with the attendees today. Is there any last words you would like to share with the attendees about, you know, thinking of opening a franchise or to, you know, take that first step forward in opening a franchise?
Yeah, I think that one thing is if you open a franchise and you just have one to start, it's a hands-on business. So I know, you know, you're looking at places to invest in that, but typically you have to run it yourself. You have to be there every day, not 7 days a week, but you have to be there every day to be successful, because no one's going to take care of your business like you are. No one's going to care so much about the quality of the food. You know, it doesn't matter how much you pay them. It is a hands-on business. So that's the come I say you have to find a brand that you're comfortable and you really enjoy doing, and you have to enjoy your work. So, you know, if you invest in your business and pay a manager $50,000 or $60,000 a year to run it, he's not going to run it as well as you could and care about it. It's your money, your investment. You need to take care of it. So, you know, I think if you're looking at investments, especially on your first one, you have to be a hands-on operator. You have to have that attitude and, you know, that personality.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is time for Q&A. If anybody have any question, you can, you know, unmute and ask Lloyd right away. Maybe we can see Kelly. videos to see if it's voice wife.
Or if you have a question, you can also
I see a
type
quick
it.
question from Nick there. How
Nick.
do you retain employees? Oh, I missed the last part of it. Have you got it, Amy?
Yes. How do you retain employees where their turnaround rate is pretty high for the food industry?
Yeah, I like the first thing again is appreciation. That's the first thing. People are looking for appreciation in this business. They notoriously don't get any. They get told everything they're doing wrong. They get the kids at McDonald's get told to go faster. The drive-through timers beeping, hey, you're overtime. So there's a lot of pressure. So you have to make it an enjoyable work atmosphere for them. So recognition is the first thing. The second thing is responsibilities. People, the younger generation, thrive on getting added responsibilities. So, and they get bored doing the same thing. So train them in all aspects of the job, rotate them around, and give them some responsibilities. If you've got someone that, you know, say for example, Sundays you're really slow, you know, I'll use you again, Amy. Amy, you do a great job on the opens. I'm going to give you the key to the store. I'll be coming in at noon, but I know you can do a good job on the prep and have the store ready to go. You know, Amy's going to feel good. The third thing, some of the people are doing free food. You know, if you want them to serve your food, you know, you should give them some. The food, of course, doesn't cost. If it costs $12 on the menu, it's really only costing you $3. Let them be ambassadors to your brand and let them eat your food. You know, you know, when I was a young guy working at McDonald's, I remember once I snuck in a pizza for the staff, and the owner came in, and I got really in trouble for bringing pizza in when they should be eating McDonald's all the time. So I kind of learned my lesson when I was an 18-year-old man. So things like free food. So, and the last thing, people, my father's generation, work was number one, right? Work was number one. So if you told him to use a gray pen with everything he does, he would be 9 to 5 and use that gray pen, wouldn't even ask it. Workforce today wants to know, why is we using the gray pen? Why don't we use the black one? So you have to explain things to them. The second thing is, the most important thing to young people now is not their work life, it's their private life. So don't be rigid in how you schedule them. If someone likes to go to yoga every Wednesday night, don't schedule them Wednesday night. If they prefer sleeping in, don't schedule them first thing in the morning. They have flexible schedules, give them time off when they want to go to a concert or something like that, keeping in mind that their personal life is way more important than their work life.
It's such a great tips. Actually, I never, I never run any franchise before, and so this is great to hear that. You know, little things count.
It's little things like when it's their birthday, get them a cake. You know, give them a card or something, or you know, if they have someone, you know, in their family sick, tell them go home, take care of your family. You know, and sometimes it's really hard to go short-staffed. Don't get me wrong, but don't make someone work sick. Don't make someone feel bad if they call in sick, you know, and say, you know, so many businesses say, well, we need you today, you know, you're going to have to tough it out, or you have to fill your own shift. You know, treat people with dignity and respect, and they'll be loyal to you. You won't have turnover. You know, if you look at the stores, every time you go in it, they got new staff. I can tell you it's not a good manager. I used to inspect restaurants. So I was the auditor that nobody knew, and I'd walk in, and within 5 minutes, I could tell what kind of personality that franchisee had by how the staff were, you know. So I think treating people skills are just so critical in everything in life, right? So
yes. So I hope that answered your question, Nick. Yes, you said great tips. Thank you for your insights. All right. Does anybody else have question for Lloyd? Okay, we actually have another question from Annie. So how can you trust your employees to do their job when you are not present in the store? Do you need to visit or be present at the store very often?
yeah, I love that question because I've got a really good example, a bad example. But we had one franchisee, and they all put security cameras in their stores, right? And so he'd be watching his security cameras at night, and he'd see someone leaning on the counter, not cleaning when there was no customers. He'd call the store, hey. So he used the security cameras to manage his staff at night. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Security cameras are good. You want the staff to know that you can see the back door, see the fridge, see the cash. But I always say they're more for prevention than catching. So I think the more you trust someone, when I opened my restaurant, I used to leave the cash out, counting it and say, hey, listen, I trust people. I like to say, I trust you, you know, give them confidence and they will live up to it. Yes, 1 in 10 people will steal from you if they're given a chance. So I think it's important they know there's screens and everything, but don't manage by a security system. Put faith in them, put trust in them, and they're 9 times out of 10, they're going to live up to it. So do you have to be there all the time? No. When you first open, probably yes. But you get your key people, you know, and, you know, another thing, restaurants, they make a mistake. At night, they just have all the staff, but nobody's in charge. You've got to have one person that's the supervisor or something. That otherwise they just don't know what they're doing. So someone kind of has to be in charge at all times. Your key people, and they're easy to figure out pretty quickly when you open a store. So, you know, give them trust, and hopefully they'll live up to it. If you don't trust them and you're calling them at night, watching them on the camera, then they're more apt to do things because they're kind of pissed off that you did that to them. So excuse my language. I was trying to think of another word there, but I didn't. It didn't come to me.
Yes, this was a great question, and was a great example from you too, because I know when I was in school, and a lot of my friends work part-time for Tim Hortons, and then the way that, you know, it depends on the manager, but sometimes management people can really you know, have a bad experience, and you know, it was I don't want to tell the story, but it was I understand what you mean by, you know, people calling from the phone, watching them from, you know, camera. So yes, so does anybody else have any question? Be the last question for today.
I've got one more quote I'd like to share with you if I could.
Yeah,
Steve Jobs. Have you guys heard of Steve Jobs? I'm sure every one of you has an iPhone. So Steve Jobs from Apple, who's deceased now, and his quote that I really, really like: your greatest indication of your success is your attitude towards it. So your greatest indicator of how successful you'll be is your attitude towards your success. Pretty great and powerful quote. So, you know, if you think you can't climb that mountain because it's too steep, you're not going to climb that mountain, you know. And I've got a franchisee, this young family in Montreal. They have 2 Korean barbecues, and their sales are double any other ones across Canada. If you want to look up their Google reviews, they're either 4.9 stars or 5 stars, and the comments are all the same: amazing service, great food, out of their way service. If you look up Choreo St. Bruno or Choreo Carrefour Laval, look at their Google reviews. You want to know how to be successful? That's the kind of things you have to do. And then, you know, so the biggest indicator of your success is really giving that great experience. So we can have stores side by side in the same mall, one super successful, one struggling. And I'll tell you, it's the franchisee and how they work with their staff more than the food they're serving. So that's the real key, that attitude and personality.
Yes, all I remember now is attitude and personality for sure.
When you're going for job interviews, remember that. That's what people are looking for, right? So,
yes.
You know, yeah.
All right. So let me just give a conclusion in Vietnamese for our audience tonight.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Amy and Vincent, for the invitation. I appreciate it. And just before I sign, you know, I'm done here. I will send Vincent a link. We do have a live session every month where the experts on all the brands are on and answer all your questions, and they have a great PowerPoint presentation, much better than my PowerPoint tonight. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested at all, that you join. You're getting more facts and figures about franchise fees, cost to build, and all that as well. So thank you, Amy and Vincent.
Absolutely, and it will be great to share along with the rest of the audience after tonight.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lord, so much for tonight.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Okay, goodbye, Lord. Okay. Thank you everybody. Và để trước khi mà kết thúc cái buổi talk show thứ 6 ngày hôm nay á, thì chắc là mình sẽ nhờ anh Vincent tổng kết một số cái ý chính, lý do tại sao mà một người khi mà lựa chọn chúng ta lựa chọn một mô hình nhượng quyền franchise thay vì là tự mở một cái restaurant của chính mình, được không?
Theo ý của khách mời ngày hôm nay của Lloyd thì khi mà trong cái quá trình mà mình mở một cái franchise thì có một số cái mà nó sẽ tốt hơn khi mình tự mở. Vì khi mà mình đầu tư vào một cái franchise là mình đang đầu tư để mua lại một cái cỗ máy mà đã có sẵn, và chủ yếu mình sẽ quay vào đó mình vận hành cái cỗ máy đó thôi, mà mình không cần phải bỏ thời gian suy nghĩ về cách marketing như thế nào, mình không phải bỏ thời gian ra suy nghĩ về những cái sản phẩm, những cái món ăn của mình như thế nào, menu như thế nào, cách training nhân viên như thế nào, và tất cả những cái phần liên quan như là mua vật liệu, tất cả những như vậy. Thì đó là một trong những cái mà điểm tốt nhất về franchise đó. Về phần mà anh Lloyd cũng có đề cập thì mình cảm thấy là franchise là một cái model rất là tốt để đầu tư cho những cái bạn nào mà có thể là chưa có đủ kinh nghiệm để bắt đầu cái quãng đường của mình, hoặc là tự mở cái tiệm của mình, và đang có ý định và có một số vốn muốn tự đầu tư vào cái mô hình kinh doanh là food and beverage.
Ok, cảm ơn anh Vincent. Và sau buổi ngày hôm nay thì Amy và Vincent sẽ viết một cái bài tổng kết tất cả những cái gọi là ý chính mà chúng ta đã trao đổi ngày hôm nay, là về chi phí đầu tư này, cũng như là tất cả những cái thương hiệu mà MTY đang quản lý trong hiện nay. Và cuối cùng thì bên mình sẽ share lại cái contact của ông Lloyd. Hàng tuần thì MTY Group người ta có những cái live session để chúng ta có thể hỏi và trao đổi về từng cái brand riêng. Thế nên là bạn nào đang quan tâm cụ thể về một cái brand nào thì có thể reach out đến Amy hoặc là Vincent, thì chúng mình sẽ hỗ trợ. Và rất là cảm ơn mọi người ngày hôm nay một lần nữa đã dành cái thời gian rất là quý báu vào buổi tối ngày thứ 5 để tham gia talk show của chúng mình. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người vào những talk show lần sau nhé. Good night.
Thank you.